And Honorable Boni Halwale is right here. Honorable Dr. Boni Halwale, former Kakamega Senator, is with us this morning to expound some more on the political events of the country, or equally, current affairs. There's so much to expound on. I only hope that time would allow us to touch on these key issues that are there. So welcome on board once again. I invite you to be part and parcel of this conversation. Hashtag Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela TV47KE. The SMS short code is right there running down on your screen, and equally the numbers to call. We'd be glad to hear what you have to say and the questions that you have for Mheshimiwa, because I'm almost certain that you could be having numerous questions in regards to his, previous utterances, or the utterances that has been, or that have been there on the public domain. Mheshimiwa, before I went on break, first of all, let me invite you again officially. Thank you so much for finding time to be here with us this morning. And before we went for the first break, the argument was that Johnson Muthama has joined the side of DP. We know very well that you are an ally, 101% as it stands. And he calls upon Kalonzo Musyoka to equally cross over to this other side. Is there anything for Kalonzo on this other side?
Yes, because that is where the country is.
Oh, yeah?
If that is where the country is, surely there should be room for everybody. It'd be wrong if indeed the deputy president wants to be the president of Kenya, and yet he's not prepared to serve everybody, Kalonzo included. Yes. All
right, so in this case then, that's a polite way of answering that one, or a tricky way of answering that one. When you say the country is there, what are we talking about? Are we talking about the 40-something million Kenyans, or what?
We are talking about, in democracy, you talk about the majority.
The balance of the majority.
The majority.
So the majority is
the
on
majority
the side.
Of the country.
Well, we'll get to that politics later on as we proceed. But importantly, I think it's only fair that we start off with President Uhuru Kenyatta's address yesterday. And this particular one that is probably of interest to many Kenyans as to the KEMSA scandal that is ongoing, or the KEMSA scandal that has been ongoing. President Uhuru Kenyatta gives an ultimatum of 21 days for us to get answers. Just how genuine is that?
It's not too clear, because so far the factors at play look like, because we all have family, we all belong to family, and we value family very highly. So his family in this matter is a family of interest.
Okay. So
pronouncement coming from the head of a family of interest in this serious scandal, it will be difficult for us to differentiate the statement of Uhuru, the president, and statement of Uhuru, the head of the family, which is a family of interest in this matter.
Just how much confidence do you have that indeed, yes, this is a family of interest in this matter? Well, aside from what has been out there on the public domain.
Because it is black and white.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yes.
Expound further.
If it was not the case, we would be expecting that in the last, 7-8 obtaining days from the time the expose came up, that would have seen court action. There's been none.
Well, the president has been categorical that, he's out there to ensure that he fights corruption, and he's not going to care whether it's going to be about family or whoever. Everyone that is going to be mentioned on the same and found culpable will be implicated. There's no question about it. What makes you doubt the president's utterances?
I doubt him a lot, because he has had an opportunity to demonstrate that he is committed to fighting corruption, up to and including the cases of the scandal of National Youth Service, where the governor of Kirinyaga was involved. The indications are that the government has not spared any opportunity to defend the governor, up to and including the recent fiasco in Senate, when Kenyans were being told that an impeachment process was going on, when there was none. Instead, it was
Are you trying to say that indeed the Senate's decision was compromised? Or?
Oh, it was terrible. Ask anybody, including this studio, all the people who come here. Let them be casting a vote before they leave.
Why should this be about the president?
For the reason that the president was the real driver of the National Youth Service Program.
Okay.
And at that time, when it was going on, he clearly made Waiguru to look like she was the face of that project. So it is a question of putting 2 and 2 together and getting 4. Yes.
At the Senate, it wasn't about the NYS saga, it was about Kirinyaga County.
Well, I'm just speaking widely.
All right.
But if I was to be specific,
trying to inform why it is that the president would have been come into this.
Yes. But if I was to be specific, I would go the route you're saying. We are therefore saying that that is a big opportunity that the president has had, but he has not taken action.
Okay, isn't it the right direction to equally go the way that Right Honorable Raila Odinga is proposing, that there needs to be an audit conducted on the same before we start pointing fingers at other? Technically, what President Uhuru Kenyatta says, that there's need that the investigative agencies take up with this matter, with the urgency that it deserves. Why is it then that we're incriminating even before it gets to that point where we get tangible evidence, or a tangible case? As many would have argued, or as the courts would have argued, it's been hard for them to deliberate on these issues because there is no tangible evidence that has been presented to them.
Yes, we've all had Raila, and some people are surprised.
Yeah.
But those of us who are in the arena of playing politics, we know that Raila knows exactly what he's doing.
Okay.
For the reason that, again, just like Uhuru's family has become a family of interest in this scandal, so has Raila's party, and the top leadership of that party also become players of interest.
Okay.
Yes, based on the evidence which is there. Leaders, including myself, have made pronouncements on this matter, and therefore, for Raila to try to be the lead person in giving advice on how it should go, again, just like in President Uhuru's case, we doubt him because of that interest. Now, why Kenyans should not allow Raila to get away with that proposal is because if indeed he's a man of his corner is a corner of interest, who is the chairman of Public Accounts Committee?
Okay.
The chairman of Public Accounts Committee is Honorable Apio Wandayi, an official of the Orange Democratic Movement, and a relative of Raila.
Okay. So
Number
this
two,
will be going to answer to them, which we probably would not.
So what will be the quality of oversight?
Oversight,
when that matter comes out.
Okay.
Secondly, the other committee in Parliament that would have to have a say on this matter would be the Committee on Finance. Who is the chair of the Committee of Finance? It's Gladys Wanga. So Kenyans are not children to be treated to the big man syndrome of saying that my name is Honorable Raila Odinga, you know my CV, and therefore I say that all of you shall follow what I'm proposing. We are saying we don't want to listen to him. On this matter, we would ask Honorable Raila Odinga to keep quiet.
If he keeps quiet, then who should speak? And what should they say if at all we are to achieve any results?
He should speak if he's one of the suspects and say that I'm sorry, if anybody thinks that I'm the one, I am not the one. He is not the DPP. He is not the DCI. He is not the Inspector of Police. He is not the president, and therefore we don't want him to advise us. But if he feels that somebody's pointing a finger at him, he's free to say, I am not the one.
He is Kenyan before he is Right Honorable Raila Odinga. Constitutionally we are allowed to come out and, of course, equally weigh in our sentiments on issues that affect us directly. So I would want to assume that he is speaking on a capacity of being Kenyan as opposed to being, a leader. That
kind of statement, because of the cloud that he carries around with him, he can easily amount to intimidation of the investigatory departments of this country. Especially when we know that in Kenya today, there is a lot of impunity. We are having cases when people are in public offices are being punished for a good day's work. We have got the examples of Senator Murkomen, Senator Susan Kihiga. They have lost positions because they have decided to stand with the truth, to stand with the people.
If you were on another side of course, a different party, would you be saying the same thing?
Precisely.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. I owe it to myself that I remain on the same trajectory that I've been from the time I entered into public service. And mine has been very clear that despite having an opportunity to steal, I have managed not to steal, and I have managed to carve for myself a niche whereby if you ask 10 Kenyans, 7 out of 10 will say Khalwale fights corruption.
How do we not have good structures? When you speak of the fact that there's been an opportunity for you to steal, what does it speak of our system? What does it speak of the structures that we have? What does it speak? Does it present a picture where we all assume that there are a lot of loopholes that are left open, so that in as much as maybe we might be fighting graft, we probably need to go back to the root cause?
If you ask me, and I think you are, there's nothing wrong with the structures. The laws are there, the constitution is there, they are very specific about matters of fighting corruption and integrity. In fact, we have reserved an entire chapter in the constitution, chapter 6, on matters of integrity and leadership. So it's not the structure. The structure is that we have institutionalized impunity completely. That people just think they can get away with anything. I mean, if you go on the streets where I've been driving when I was coming to the studio, and you ask the Askaris, who by the way are very highly educated people, but only because there are no job opportunities in this country, they have to take food home. They know. They even know who took money. They even know when it was taken and all that.
But is it not what the president was saying, that if you know who has done this, you know where to go? Karura, you take that direction and go to the DPP, go to the DCI, go and report some of these issues. With this kind of knowledge, why is it that we take our fights to the social media? How healthy is that towards us, attaining or winning this fight?
It is because people are frustrated. They know that even if you take that information to the so-called the people in those institutions, no action is taken. Or, if anything, the knowledge you give them gives them an opportunity to best prepare on how to sanitize themselves. So the president cannot be asking Kenyans to go and report to the DCI. He has got an entire state machinery that costs the taxpayer billions of shillings for doing that work of investigation.
Deputy President William Ruto is part and parcel of the presidency.
Yes.
And what capacity does it have to speak on this particular matter of graft as a leader?
I want to confirm that I'm aware of that purely because of the letter and spirit of the Constitution, that he is a member of the presidency. To go beyond that is now for me to attempt to speak to the working chemistry between the two of them. I'm not in that position.
But have they presented that to the public domain, their working relationship as it stands? So probably as Kenyans we can deliberate on the same.
Personally, I believe it's laughable that you would have a deputy who is as talented as William Ruto, and you have a constitution that gives you the kind of latitude it does, and then you don't want him to enjoy leg room to perform.
Is it obvious that the president does not want him to do that, or it's probably him who's just decided to take a back seat?
I think you're in a better position to tell.
No, you tell us, Mheshimiwa, because you have been in this field for the longest of time.
As they say in soccer, and I know you love soccer.
Well, I do.
You come from a soccer community.
I do.
It is the spectators who are best placed.
I am in a position to say that, but again, not while I'm on set. So this one curtails me. You know, the environment is that now curtails me. So we can only allow you to weigh in your sentiment as a spectator.
Yeah, but because I live in this country, I know that all is not well. Yeah, we would like to see our deputy president working in the robust manner he used to do in the first term of the Uhuru presidency. Yeah.
Allegations of corruption have been made or have been leveled against the DP, or so to speak, his allies. Would you suppose the counter that we are saying today is probably not a genuine counter towards addressing the issues of the common mwananchi, but a tit-for-tat affair that, you know what, you pointed fingers at us at some point in time. Now it is time for us to point fingers at you.
The allegations against the deputy president are made by cowards. If they were being made by men and women of character, they would be doing what some of us did when we cast aspersions.
You've made such allegations while you were in NASA.
Yes, I'm going there.
Okay.
That's where I was going.
All right.
If they were men and women of character, they would have done what some of us did. When we cast aspersions against the deputy president, we did something about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
You realized
I
that-
took a motion and moved the Parliament of Kenya to make a decision on the deputy president. And it is in public domain that I lost.
Yes, you did. Why
But
do you suppose you lost because genuinely he was a credible man, or you lost because again?
He put up a defense.
Right.
I prosecuted the case, and on the weight of evidence, Parliament decided to lean with him.
Right.
Even if I was unhappy because I had lost my motion, he proved his innocence at that stage.
Yeah.
What has stopped all these people, including people like James Orengo, who are experienced politicians like me, who are senior counsels in the practice of law, what has stopped them from doing something about it the way I did?
All right.
So I either call them coward or people who are just peddling propaganda. Yes.
Or is it just the system that you just talked about?
And then
the fact that, you know what, in as much as you go and blow the whistle, nothing much can be done.
I don't believe in the word system.
Well, not system in this case, the system that we talk about, but
Yes.
technically, yes, the systems at large that you're referring to. You say that, you know, sometimes Kenyans are tired because they know in as much as they're going to present this, they will also blow. Nothing really might happen.
I'll tell you when you are talking about that kind of system, I thought you were talking
No,
about
no, the other system,
as in deep state.
no deep state,
If you
yes.
mean that system, what it confirms to me is that the reason why knowledgeable people like Orengo are not taking action,
Right.
either to impeach the deputy president or actually get him sued so that he is jailed, it is because they are merely driving a political narrative, hoping that they can use the narrative of a corrupt man to use the language of young people so as to reduce the bonga points of the deputy president politically. Otherwise, if they had impeccable issues to speak to,
Right.
they have a wonderful opportunity to use it to nail the guy.
Well, these
Yeah.
conversations are still in court, so probably we should leave them at that as we await to see whether the 21 days that President Uhuru Kenyatta has declared
Are we,
going to yield.
are we interested parties in court?
Oh, well, no.
No, we are not interested
So
parties.
we're allowed to be interested parties outside.
Outside, we
and
can
have
be
the
able to comment
conversation.
on what's going on in that court. I mean, it's
I
only if
agree.
we are interested parties.
Amicus Curiae, where are we? I know. And now let's cross over to this conversation, culminating from yesterday's address by President Uhuru Kenyatta. And first, let's pick this story and come back, react on the same. That is on a referendum, state of a referendum. All right, as we try and get a hold of that, yes, President Uhuru Kenyatta declares that a referendum is inevitable, of course backed by Right Honorable Raila Odinga, who says reggae in eco break. We'll be right back with reggae. 2010 Constitution is 10 years old. Promulgation conducted 27th day. A day like this, what do you make of it so far?
Oh, it's a wonderful 10 years that they have been.
Why wonderful?
Because we know what Kenya was
Yeah.
without the Constitution 2010. It's far much better. Because of courtesy of the old Constitution, today I'm sure there would be a lot of people serving detention.
Right.
So the new Constitution has given us a Bill of Rights, that we are enjoying freedoms that are unprecedented.
Yeah.
Number two, we are enjoying freedoms that are not enjoyed by many third world country members. The new Constitution has given us the structure of devolution, and it is changing villages. We know it could be better, but it is better than when it was not there.
Okay.
The current Constitution has given us a judiciary that now has teeth. We know that the judiciary is not doing very well, but it's not because of the structure of the Constitution, but because of the impunity. There are players who want to go and interfere with the work of the judiciary. We know that, for example, thanks to the new Constitution, we have a bicameral parliament, and in the process, legislation oversight is better structured, can be better done. But again, the failures we might be having is because of impunity, whereby the executive is breaching the principle of separation of powers.
Yeah.
So they go into areas where they should not be going. So we are happy that the new constitution is there for that and many other reasons.
10 years into it, and the conversation has changed.
Yes.
That probably there are very many loopholes into this constitution. There needs to be some amendment, and we acknowledge the dynamism of constitutions across the globe. And in this case, then we are allowed to probably have a conversation, charting the way forward towards amending the constitution. One. This talk of a BBI or this talk of change of the constitution at this point when we all acknowledge that we've not even been able to implement a quarter of the constitution that we have today, is it a wise move?
I leave it up to Kenyans to decide whether it is a wise move or not. But I will say my piece.
Yes.
My piece is as follows. Do we want to change the constitution simply because it is 10 years old? If so, where in the constitution is it written that this constitution shall stand to be amended 10 years after promulgation?
Okay.
It's not there. So that is a wrong premise, that it is 10 years and therefore we must change. It's rubbish. Two, do we want to change the constitution because President Uhuru feels and thinks that it is a constitutional moment? Where in the constitution is written that when the president, the serving president, feels that it is a constitutional moment, then the country should change the constitution? It's not there. And therefore that statement by Uhuru should be treated as a private citizen's statement and not the president of the Republic of Kenya.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be treated as that. Three, do we want to amend it because Raila and an animal called BBI handshake are saying that we must change the constitution? Again, the answer is the same. It is not there in the constitution that there shall come a powerful man with a rich history of being active in politics, and whenever he wishes that the constitution be changed, then it should be done. It is not there. We want to change the constitution when we are properly moved. You can move the constitution properly through the provisions of the same constitution, Article 256. You can move it. You can move the country.
Do you feel like we are at that time?
The Article 257, you can move the country.
Yeah.
We are not at that stage. I am looking for three things which we must sort out before we move the country.
All right.
The first one is what the Constitution, the Committee of Parliament is speaking to, creating a law that should govern referenda.
Yeah.
So we need a referendum law.
Okay.
I want to compliment Honorable Kioni.
That one by Kioni, yes.
Yes, I want to compliment him and his committee.
Bill.
They are thinking in the right direction.
Right.
The second thing we need is to get an advisory opinion from the Supreme Court.
Okay.
The Supreme Court should tell this country whether the Constitution can be amended for the sake of amending it.
Okay.
And if it cannot be amended for the sake of amending it the way Raila wants, the way President Uhuru wants, then they should tell us what are the criteria that must be observed before you attempt to amend the Constitution.
Hold it right there, Mheshimiwa.
Because I'm sounding theoretical,
yes,
allow me to be clearer to the listeners and viewers. There are certain chapters in that Constitution which I have read and understood that to me would never ever at any time be changed.
Okay.
The chapter on the Republic. Can you amend the Republic of Kenya so that you change the boundaries of Kenya?
Certainly
between
not.
Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Somalia, and so on? Certainly not. So even if somebody came with 100% majority in Parliament, or somebody came up with 1 million signatures, which you can get, by the way, on the boundary. Because if, for example, with due respect, the Luyas of Kenya decided that they want to be counted with the Luyas of Uganda to be on the same side, they can give you 7 million signatures and they say Luyas want to go to Uganda.
Right.
Would you allow them? You can't.
No.
So that amendment is not admissible.
Okay.
2, supposing you got 1 million signatures, or the whole parliament decided that you want to change the Bill of Rights, would you allow amendment of a constitution where you take away the rights of Kenyans?
No.
For example, if somebody says, we now want to remove the right to life.
You cannot.
You cannot. No. Number 3, these are practical, serious issues. On the issue being peddled by President Uhuru and Raila, the issue of the chapter on the executive. Are we sure you can admit an amendment of the executive? You can't. Do you know why? If you do, it therefore means if Uhuru and Raila feel that their families are so special, and I know they do, that's why they are mistreating us the way they are mistreating us, they can very easily move the country using their clout and wealth to provide that we move Kenya, the executive, the chapter of the executive, to move away from presidential system to a monarchy, so that their 2 families can be the ones ruling this country in perpetuity.
Okay.
So the Supreme Court, we want them to tell us whether those chapters that I've referred to and many others maybe can actually be amended. And therefore, if they cannot be amended, Alela, if they cannot be amended, it therefore means that there is a basic structure of the Constitution that you cannot touch.
Okay.
So that determination, until it is made, this Kelele and Manenos will always come up.
But we saw very many leaders in Bomas, and to what we saw for a moment, it's like it was an endorsement of what it is that the BBI would present. Was it hypocritical? Why didn't we have these conversations even before that actual date of the presentation by the, by the task force?
I thank God that I've been around for a while.
Yeah.
What I saw in Bomas, that was not the first time Kenyans were going to Bomas.
Yes.
We had asked the delegates who went to Bomas in 2005 that came up with the famous Bomas draft that this country shall forever miss. The identification of that list of delegates who went to Bomas, there was a process. But the people who came to Bomas the other day, Bomas 2, let me call it Bomas 2,
okay.
It was a choreographed gathering whereby county commissioners, sub-county commissioners, chiefs, assistant chiefs, cherry-picked from wherever they work, people who would come, people then who came to cheer on. That is why you saw whenever anybody came up with a contrary opinion, they were being booed. It was a shameful gathering that we had in Bomas on that day.
You are a leader, and we have numerous other powerful leaders that Kenyans look up to ensure that, some of these issues are not forced down our throats. Some of these issues are not bulldozed on us. But you're the very same leaders who are crying foul. What picture does it paint to the common mwananchi who looks up to you to get representation?
I'm glad that we are now in the digital era where Kenyans can directly and almost in real time engage you. Like if I was to open my phone now, Kenyans are engaging me as I'm on this studio. I take a lot of comfort from the fact that Kenyans speak to where I'm headed. Kenyans speak to the pronouncements I make, positively and negatively. It keeps on steering your compass accordingly. I want to confirm to you, if what we are doing, we might look small and not in public office and so on.
Okay.
If we stop it, there can be a dictatorship in this country.
Right.
If we stop it, we can completely find ourselves with a document mutilated to the extent that we are not talking about an amended constitution, but a new constitution.
If in office, would you have addressed this with the same vigor?
If I was?
If in office.
Oh, sure. I mean, that is my history. And you know it. You're old enough to know how I've been practicing my politics.
Right.
Yes. So we are taking pride from the fact that we have kept the course. And we want to thank the president. The president has never intimidated me for the views that I take.
Right.
Save, of course, when I was in NASA. When I was in NASA is when they attempted to deal with me.
Right.
But that is for another day. Yeah.
Okay, well, so much to speak about, but I think it's only fair that we pay some bills here.
You do?
Briefly, we pay some bills, we take a
Yes.
short break, and then we come back to expound some more on other issues that are of importance to the common Mwananchi right here, as we chart the way forward on the issues of governance right here in the country. So let's take that short break, and we'll be right back with Honorable Boni Halwale.
Thank you.
All right, as we are now back, Mheshimiwa, we're back again. Yes, that was pretty fast, yeah? And we expand some more. Actually, importantly, that we invite you to be part of the discussion. Remember, you can as well call live, and we get answers in regards to the same. There is some question coming here from one Wafula Jones. Says, what happened for him to change the tune after bashing Ruto for a very long time? Does it mean he's also enjoying the looted money, or so to speak? And yes, he says Mheshimiwa is very clever on his approach on matters constitution. All right.
Wafula.
Yes.
You want me to respond?
Yes.
Wafula, it must be very clear to all of us that politics, just like life, is dynamic. Nothing is permanent.
Yeah.
Yeah? So because of the very dynamism of politics, you are interacting with person X today, person Y tomorrow,
Right.
and so on and so forth. Secondly, the more you interact with people, the more you get to the bottom of the issues that either you are misunderstanding or the issues that were keeping you apart. Now, why am I working with William Ruto? We have a shared vision. The vision Ruto has. It doesn't matter if you have evidence that he's a thief. It doesn't matter whether you have evidence that he's a bad man, a terrible person. But there is a vision he has, which I share with him.
Let's take this example, Mheshimiwa, and go a little bit on the larger bit. Just allow me to ask this. It's in relation to the same, yeah?
Okay.
We look at the likes of Zimbabwe. And we've seen leaders who've worked with Mugabe. And many argue that, even upon the exit of Mugabe, getting a person who worked with Mugabe would probably not do anything good for the country.
Yes.
But others argued, no, Mugabe was more of a person who was running the show on his own. So the likes of Mnangagwa coming in would probably have now the confidence to work on their very own vision that, would have changed the country. But such is not what we witnessed today in Zimbabwe. One would argue that Deputy President William Ruto is part and parcel of the government, working with President Uhuru Kenyatta. Why is it that he's not being able to execute this vision at this time for the betterment of the country? And what makes you think that when he is there or is going it alone without President Uhuru Kenyatta or any other person, that it's going to be a different affair?
Huge. So I'll answer it in two sentences.
Yeah.
The first one is Wafula. I was telling you the issue of a shared vision.
Yeah.
Look, it is now clear that according to the president and according to the former prime minister, Kenya will develop very fast if we afford the two of them, by dint of the fact that they come from the founding families of the republic, an opportunity to continue in leadership. Some people call it the dynasties.
Yeah.
Ruto and I, and many like-minded Kenyans, we are saying we want a country where the children of this country, including, if God blesses you with children in the future, can enjoy equal access to opportunity.
All right, yes.
We want our children to enjoy equal access to opportunity, period.
Yeah.
So that my son can compete with the son of the sugarcane kata of Kakamega. That's where I converge with Ruto, and we will continue moving in that direction.
Is it so hard to start the processes right now?
We are on it. This is why we are together.
All right.
Now, to answer you on the case of Zimbabwe, I'll answer it by giving you the example of Kenya. Our youth might not be too much in the know about Zimbabwe. Once upon a time in this country, President Moi had a vice president called Mwai Kibaki. And President Moi ran down the economy of this country to the extent that literally nothing was moving.
Yeah.
And Kibaki was his vice president of 8 years plus. So had you ridden off Kibaki, that because he had been in the same office with Moi, he would mess the country even more, we would have missed out on the 10 years of Kibaki, which up to date, if you ask me, of the 4 presidents that we have had, Kibaki stands out as the best performer. So if Kibaki performed from a terrible presidency like that one of Moi, I have no doubt that given an opportunity, President Ruto will improve on what Uhuru has achieved.
Well, one would argue this way, Mheshimiwa, that, sometimes when it comes to gauging, so you see when people have performed terribly, like the comparison, let's take the comparison that used to be there, that many argue, when you look at Nairobi with Sonko and Nairobi with Kidero probably did not do so much justice for it. So one would look at what it is that Sonko is doing and probably say, well, he's probably done better, but still not up to standards. So in this case, while we might argue that, yes, maybe President Kibaki did justice to the country in terms of change, he could have done more. In the event that you do not take this, in the event that there's no likelihood of garnering this, what happens to this dream?
Because you brought in the issue of Sonko, if I don't comment, I'll not be doing justice to the viewers.
Yeah.
Sonko had 2 challenges which were monumental.
All right.
The first one is intrinsic. The guy does not have good access to education. You need good education to run public office. Nobody should apologize for that. Yeah, okay. Nobody should apologize. I mean, you cannot ask a matatu driver to fly a Boeing 747 Dreamliner. You can't. So you need good education to be in public office if that office is going to deliver. He had that challenge. The second challenge, and for which I sympathize, is that Sonko worked under very difficult circumstances. There are players in Nairobi who believe that governors of Nairobi should be from particular areas, from particular ethnic backgrounds, which was not shared by Sonko.
Yeah.
So from day one, they were frustrating Sonko. From day one, they were salivating for Sonko's
But
office.
who are these? Because my assumption is that Jubilee wanted office, and through Sonko, Jubilee got the office. Well, they wanted to get it from Kidero because they felt like
they were so desperate for the office,
yes,
that they would use anybody or anything to get it. So when they used Sonko, because Sonko was an extremely popular politician in Nairobi, he got more votes in Nairobi than President Uhuru. Yeah, they used him, and now they wanted to dump him. What other justification is there for the president of Kenya to take away the county government of Nairobi from Sonko, and procedurally? I mean, if he wanted to take away the county government of Kenya, of Nairobi from Sonko, he should have allowed public participation. The president should. He should have allowed the county assembly of Nairobi to vote supermajority in favor of taking away. But to one day give Sonko a call, and the guy, he has told us, and he goes to wherever they took him, and they tell him, sign on the dotted line. He told us, in fact, he told us he had taken something.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, he told us. I mean, that is not the way to take a county government. If the national government must take away a county government, it is written in the constitution. It should have been followed. And it's a shame that on that day, the Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya was standing there.
Yeah.
He should have advised the president that there is the due process. Thirdly, when I looked at it, the signing away of that, they call it the deed of transfer, signing the deed of transfer of the county government of Nairobi was done between Sonko and Eugene Wamalwa.
Right.
Eugene Wamalwa is not head of the national government.
He's head of devolution.
He's the head of devolution.
Yes, and devolution is
when
key.
he was signing, Sonko was handing over functions, including the functions of health and the functions of revenue collection and so on, which was outside the purview of the Minister for Devolution. The people who should have signed the deed of transfer should have been the president, who was receiving the government, and Sonko, who was handing over the government. In the presence of Sonko, I should have seen the attorney of the county government of Nairobi, just like we had the attorney general of Kenya for President Uhuru. They did it wrongly. I'm sure, I'm not a judge, I'm sure if it went to a bench, the bench would say that the decision...
Why did it not go to a bench? Why do we see now Sonko joining the bandwagon and working with President Uhuru Kenyatta, yet no one is raising an issue?
Carrot and stick. Carrot and stick is a tactic that works in politics. So they are tangling it to Sonko, telling him, take this, and if you don't take it, here are the consequences. So the poor man is still under a lot of pressure.
Before we go for a break and incorporate somebody else who wants to join us, my question then goes back to what it is that I had asked initially. And I'm not trying to prophesy doom, but in the event that, you successfully do not find your ways to power, the DP does not find his way to presidency, or so to speak, what happens to this dream of ensuring that the common mwananchi, every other person, left, right, and center, regardless of where they come from, all walks of life, are able to be represented?
Two answers.
Yes.
The first one is philosophical. Life goes on.
All right. Accept and move on.
Yes. The second one is scientific. Michael Faraday, the man who discovered the bulb, did 400 tests. And every time he failed, he said, I have found yet another way in which it can't work. I can assure you, this dream is not my dream. It is not Ruto's dream. It's the dream of Kenyans. And if we are given time, because we are not fools, and we shall not apologize for the opportunity nature has given us to rise to where we are.
So there's nothing wrong with Baba trying again and again and again.
Yes. So let me tell you, this dream, if we have a bit of time, we are going to convert it into the Kenyan dream. Just like the Americans say, the American dream. We want the Kenyan dream to be that any child born within the Republic of Kenya has got access to any opportunity, and that access must be unlimited and it must be equal.
All right, Mheshimiwa, hold it right there. Let's incorporate Gloria Orwaba to this conversation, who's a youth policy analyst.
Who is that?
Let's get to hear Gloria Orwaba. Yes, she'll be joining us to tell us more on the same. You know Gloria, yes, on the angle of the youth and what she feels about the representation
She's very good.
Of now. Yes, Gloria will be coming to you after this break. And welcome back to the conversation. Remember, your feedback is very important right now. Most of the questions that you'll be sending will be here to ensure that Mheshimiwa gets to answer them. The hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela TV47K, the numbers to call and to send SMSs on running down on your screen. So indeed, Karibu Sana once again to the conversation. And Honorable Boni Halwale is with me this morning. Mheshimiwa, before we leave on this question, or before we wind up on this question of a referendum, can we match up to the stamina of the likes of the UK? Baba says we have enough money in the country to conduct a referendum. UK, the other countries, the mature democracies conduct elections in a year like twice. So what makes us think that we're not able to do that? And Kenyans argue that probably we do not have enough money.
You know, at a moment like that, at a moment like this, when Kenyans are finding it increasingly difficult to meet certain small things as small as food,
Yeah.
for you to say there is enough money is very unfortunate. To go even further and say that the 2 billion shillings required is very little money and therefore it should be made available is even more unfortunate. Why? Because how can the former Prime Minister talk as if 2 billion shillings is pocket change?
Okay.
Do you know what 2 billion shillings would do in Siaya, where he was born? You know, these guys, they only go to the rural areas there for occasions. But for all intents and purposes, they come from Nairobi.
Right.
They're not like us who come from the rural areas. Yeah.
Always in Kakamega.
Yes, yes, yes. People would appreciate if they can have 100 shillings in their pocket.
Right.
Mr. Former Prime Minister, please, I want you to know that that 100 shillings, which you think is very small, is the reason why a child in Siaya District Hospital died, a 5-year-old child died because of malaria.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have 100 shillings to go and buy the drip water to put in quinine to cure the child.
Right.
So we should talk responsibly.
And certainly also we should have a conversation sometime on the health, situation in the country, which again is pretty much unfortunate. Let's loop in Gloria Orwaba, who's a youth policy analyst, joining us this morning. Gloria, good morning.
Good morning.
I hope you've been following up the conversation.
Yes, I
Mheshimiwa
have.
is here for you to ask all the questions that you'd want. I think I'd allow you to be my co-host this morning.
Thank you very much. I actually want to give my take on the Constitution at 10 years.
Right.
One of the things that we are putting focus on is devolution as well as separation of powers.
Yeah.
But from a youth perspective, it's very imperative that we also focus on the Bills of Rights and what has been done, because these are rights that have been protected by this Constitution, and we have over 20 of them. And from an angle of the youth perspective, we should pay attention to some of them. If, for instance, the freedom and security of a person that affects the youth. This means that from under the Bill of Rights, it is important that we understand that the arrest of citizens, particularly the youth, without being put to trial or just being detained for no apparent particular reason. This is something that has been on focus in the last couple of months, and particularly also now that we saw it with the Senate.
Yeah.
So for me, even as we focus on the wins of the Constitution after 10 years, we need to understand that we have a long way to go. We need to understand that in order for us to reach a place where we can safely say that maybe we need a referendum, we definitely should have gone through ensuring that we have some of the rights, like access to information, like freedom of expression. For instance, within the youth, we see a lot of creatives being arrested. Talk about artists being picked up, like there's a guy called Msingi who was actually picked up at Galleria. He was trying to take pictures for a photographic kind of expression. So these are some of the matters when it comes to the youth perspective that we have to push for in order for us to say that we have actually exercised the Constitution as is, and maybe now we need to look into amending some of the places or going into this referendum. So I thought maybe I should weigh in on that as we delve deeper in terms of the other elements like separation of power and how devolution has actually brought development down to the grassroots, even for the youth.
Very important. And as we wind up on that, Mheshimiwa, again, I think I want to loop you on what it is that Gloria has said. Gloria paints a picture of very many Kenyans who argue that maybe we should probably not have an amendment or changes or a referendum, but probably just try and work out the Constitution that we have currently. And this would be the question. In the event that it sails through, how do we avoid the problem that we had initially where, some of the Kenyans would say, Well, somebody else has read it, so we certainly do not have, we do not need to read it. Where do we make sure that the common mwananchi is incorporated in the process to make a just and a genuine decision?
The best law is the one that protects the weakest in society.
Right.
For starters, the weakest in our society are women and children. Our current constitution, in an attempt to protect the women who are weak, it put in the 2/3 gender rule.
Yeah.
So instead of, for example, focusing on implementing that particular provision in the constitution, we want to amend the constitution so as to speak to the greed of the stronger people of the society, i.e. men, i.e. rich men, i.e. rich men from dynastic families. Those are very powerful people.
Yeah.
Let us go and speak to the weak. If, and the constitution is very clear, if Parliament is unable to provide for these weak people,
Yeah.
the women, the 2/3 gender rule,
Right.
the same constitution prescribes that Parliament must be dissolved as a lesson. And the incoming Parliament, immediately as its first agenda item,
Address that.
addresses and legislates the 2/3 gender rule. Just about time we dissolved Parliament so that the members of Parliament who think they are so privileged can have an opportunity before they go into by-election to go and read the lives and times of members of Parliament who worked for the people.
Yeah.
In the House of Commons, there is a beautiful story called The Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace is Honorable William, who decided that slaves might be free.
All right.
And because Parliament was serving the rich, the owners of slaves, he went against the grain until he succeeded. And that is the story of the Amazing Grace. We want members of Parliament to go through the Honorable William moment of Amazing Grace so that they give the women their 2/3 gender proviso,
Yeah.
so that they give the youth their rightful share in government. Can you imagine a government that recalls from retirement people who are over 70 years old to come and do jobs for which the youth are better qualified? If I went for that kind of appointment, I can assure you, I'm 60 years old, and my children who have better education than me, and they are in their they have crossed into 30s. They were
Makes
competing
sense.
for the same.
Yeah.
I would say, go and take it.
Right.
Go and take it. I don't need it. I can go and take care of my bulls in Marinya.
All right. Well, looking and yes, Gloria, coming back to you. First of all, do you suppose, like Mheshimiwa says, that we need indeed that William moment? Do we have any leadership at hand right now? The leaders that we have, honestly, one of them or any of them that stands to take us to that moment?
I believe we do. And I believe some of these leaders are actually not necessarily the veteran politicians. I'm not talking of the likes of Martha Karua, who I adore.
Yeah.
I'm not talking of the likes of the veterans who we are automatically looking at in terms of presidential candidates. But I'm just looking in the youth perspective, the scope of the leaders that we have in the youth. Unfortunately, what happens is we have to fight for these spaces. There's no clear pathway of how to graduate in the political seen as a youthful leader. So you're technically either fighting within the political parties for you to climb up the ladder from a volunteer or just a member to a secretary general, like you've seen as Edwin Sifuna. And then what next after being the secretary general? You know, we're looking at leaders like Fred Okango, who is within the scope of the youth and are actually trying to define what it means to make it in the spaces of leadership within the political arena. But one of the things I want to touch on is what Honorable Boni Halwale has brought to place about the jobs being given to 70-year-olds, jobs that can easily be executed by youthful aspiring professionals. I want to bring to the attention the fact that this constitution was actually seen by the people of Kenya as a way to address issues on equitable distribution of resources, on historical land injustices, and also ensuring that Kenya is inclusive in terms of governance. But when you look at, for instance, one of our guiding books, or you'd say, it's called Mwongozo, which is used as a guiding governance protocol or something within our state agencies. One of the things that it does, it actually discriminates against the youth when it comes to appointments in leadership positions. It discriminates against the youth in terms of setting the prerequisites very high, such that by the time you have had 10 years experience, by the time you have had 5 years on senior management level, by the time you have had a degree to be appointed in as a CEO or a senior a state official within these parastatals or government agencies, you're definitely way past the youth age. So what happens is we have competent youthful leaders who are willing to take up the mantle, who are literally ready to run these institutions of the youth, but they are being set aside by institutions within government that are actually being protected by this constitution. So it's basically maligning the youth. And I think this is part of the things, before we start saying we need to change this constitution and we need to go into a referendum, we have a lot of cases within the Bills of Rights that we can try to implement and we can try to be better at, and also just to look into the devolution forum in terms of how we have devolved this power down to county level. Have we included women? Have we included the youth? Is it effectively being exercised? And then after that, run with it for 2, 3, 4 years, see where the loopholes are, the challenges, is when we can come back and say then indeed we need a referendum, if at all.
But then I'll ask this lastly. Brenda, the approach of the youth towards getting themselves into leadership, and Mheshimiwa, I'll also want to hear your take on the same. There's been argument, and you look at the wave across Africa. Yes, indeed, there are youths that are coming out and would want to get to leadership positions. But there's been that talk of politics of intolerance, that, they are chesting their way in, as opposed to addressing issues in a way that should be addressed, amicable ways, democratic ways for that matter. So when we're talking about the politics of intolerance, how then do we get our youths from that scope and get them, approach issues, issue-based, with ideologies, with, changes that indeed are going to be worth looking at, the issues that are taken stage, Bobi Wine in Uganda. You just mentioned Fred Okango. And you saw what happened in Third Way Alliance yesterday. Of course, the spearhead guy being Fred Okango. First, before we look in Mheshimiwa on the same, are the youths taking a good approach towards this? Gloria.
I think what is happening is the youth don't have mentorship. And it's not only the mentorship issue, they're not given any spaces on this table. So what is happening is that they are really trying to fight for their space in terms of leadership in the political arena. And this does not necessarily mean that there is one way to go about it. So you have mentioned some of the controversial youth leaders that have been in the media. That is their way of saying, I'm here. Listen to me, now that I have your attention, can we probably focus on ABC? It's not necessarily the conventional way that we should go about it, but it's a starting point. And not to put so much pressure on the youth, but I feel as though one of the biggest gaps that we have as youth leaders is the lack of sensitization of our governance systems. For youth leaders to understand where are the channels where I can tap into and try to, be an advocate of the youth agenda. So maybe one of the things that we should focus on more and more is sensitization of our governance systems, making sure that the youth leaders really understand what is this government about, this Senate, whether it's the National Assembly, whether it's member of county assemblies, how then do I plug into those different spaces? When you go into government institutions, aside from the parastatals and the agencies that are focused on the youth agenda, just under the Ministry of ICT, Innovations and Youth, there are different forums in there that you can plug in, that you can try to say, okay, I am very strong in ICT, there's this program under youth and I can take leadership in certain areas in my community. So what you're seeing is there is lack of knowledge being imparted to the youth leaders in our communities, and therefore what happens is that because they are fighting for a space at the table, they end up either taking the completely controversial way, as you're seeing the Secretary General of Third Way Alliance, Fred Okango, fighting with his chair and trying to ensure that the youth agenda and that the reason why that party was put to place is actually being seen to fruition. So I feel as though this is a starting point for the youth, because at least now you can see that we are starting to talk about the youth agenda within the political arena. So in the next couple of years, I hope that because of the sensitization of our governance systems, we might, as the youth, try to look for different approaches of achieving that youth agenda that we are strongly advocating for.
And also the women, taking a look at that affirmative action, and women have also been incorporated. We've tried so much to create space for the women, but equally conversations have been as to, we do not even know whether we need the women rep position, because probably they have not proved themselves, or if they have, they're not doing much for it to be felt across the public domain.
The people who are against positions that are preserved for women in the constitutions are the same ones who don't understand why we put those positions there. And when I say we, I do it deliberately, because we were in the generation that fought for this constitution. We put it there so that you give an opportunity for a woman to to enjoy acclimatization, because the political environment in this country is extremely hostile to women. If you allow me, when Honorable Senator Mutula Kilonzo Sr. passed on, the person who was first on the line was the daughter.
Kathy.
But I saw things happen in Ukambani and all manner of things in Wiper until Kathy was knocked out and Junior came in. I'm not saying Junior is not up to it, but it just speaks to the complexities of the ecosystem in which women are expected to practice politics. So it was intended that this woman would be given a soft landing, she acclimatizes, and then goes into competitive politics. What I want to encourage the women who succeed as women MPs, they should not stay on into that position. The ones who succeed as nominated MPs, they should not stay on. They should be there for maximum of 2 terms, then they leave the space for somebody else to enjoy that particular space.
Competitive like Naisula Leisuda, the likes of them.
And you cannot blame Gloria for her worry. She's saying, youth try, but they are faced with impossible challenges. There are 2 things which are serious challenges to our youth when they want to rise. The first one is tribalism / nepotism. The people in power would like to support the youth who come from their ethnic background or their families. The second one is the role played by the older politicians. The older politicians, they are not only old, but they are powerful, and they use that power to make it impossible
For this to switch.
for the youth to come up. I mean, I would love a situation whereby a Kenyan leader did what Mandela did, where Mandela said, I have served for 4 years, I think I have done what I should have done,
And
I
leave it
give
to
way.
somebody else.
Our guys must go on and on
Chain
and on. Is this my winding remark?
No, well, your winding
okay.
remark then, I'll allow you. But before that, the Senate committee, the 12-member committee, argues, now that we spoke about Mutula Kilonzo, brought me to that Senate aspect, and you are a former senator, finally says that, they have a solution to the stalemate, the revenue share stalemate as it stands. What do you expect?
Very exciting. The only breakthrough on this stalemate will be occasioned by adopting what the deputy president has requested the country to say, i.e., let nobody lose and let nobody win at the expense of another person.
How possible
So
is
it
this?
should be win-win.
It's a possible thing?
It's very
It is
possible.
achievable?
Oh, I have been in Senate for 5 years,
Okay.
right at the forefront of fighting for equity, and I know it is doable.
Will the politics around you suppose that is what they're going to present to us?
If you visit my timeline,
Yes.
I tweeted right at the beginning that the only way senators will be able to debate this matter with sobriety is when BBI politics, handshake politics are removed, and when President Uhuru and former Prime Minister do not express their interest. So what is at play now is not that formula.
Okay.
There are these other issues that are now at play. We must do it the way it would please the handshakers and the BBIists.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
That's why they're having
So
problems.
sadly, we might not be able to get anything.
It
Is that a polite way of telling us?
looks a bit daisy.
Let's cross our fingers for the best all the same. Devolution is at stake, Glory, as we get to wind up. How do we solve the situation? It was supposed to ensure that we get, job opportunities for youth, get services to the people. But then with such conversations, while incorporated in the Constitution, but we are not able to achieve solutions. They put devolution at that point whereby we start questioning whether we needed it from the word go, much as many argue that it was the best thing that could happen to us. What do you suppose would be the Senate's deliberation, and what can we do to save devolution briefly?
I think the first thing we can do is we have to absolutely acknowledge that devolution is good for this country. Devolution is what has brought development to the grassroots and the corners of this nation where national government would not otherwise have reached. I mean, look at areas like Machakos, where they have the People's Park. They have really tapped into the recreational element of the county. When you go to Makueni, this is the first county where we are seeing a county healthcare system that is really looking at the population, even providing over 65-year-olds free medical care without having to pay any premiums. Devolution should not be looked at as a negative thing that we introduced to this country, but as the tool that has actually driven, first of all, the developments in our counties, that has driven the youth to finally start believing that they are indeed the future of this country. So I feel as though the first starting point is to respect and appreciate the wins of devolution and what this constitution has delivered to the people. Because at the end of the day, the sovereign power is to the people. Now, when you talk about what should we do to ensure that we protect devolution, I really believe that we should encourage independence within these systems, within the judicial system, within the executive, within the National Assembly and the Senate. If these institutions ran as according to how the Constitution was drafted and how they envisioned it, then we should only be talking about fine-tuning certain areas on affirmative action with the youth and gender, fine-tuning areas where We have discovered loopholes when it comes to, for instance, impeaching governors or passing over of powers from county back to national government. We should be fine-tuning elements of this constitution and not looking at it as a whole and saying, let's throw this away. And in fact, the question on the referendum to me is not a question that we should be entertaining at this moment, because the sovereign power is to the people, and the people have not really asked for a referendum. The people have not said they are tired of the county system. The people are actually excited and looking forward to the next elections, where they get to cast their own votes to pick the presidency, and not a certain few, according to the proposed system, that will pick the presidency or the prime minister or the top leadership. So I feel as though, as we're celebrating 10 years of the Constitution, it is really imperative for us to focus on the wins and then look at it as a living document in terms of fine-tuning what the evolution has brought to us.
All right, well articulated, Mheshimiwa. Do I have to say anything more?
Yeah,
it's
you
time
have
to wind up the session.
You have to.
No, you wind up the session.
You have to.
Yes.
You know, listening to Gloria, I want her to readjust a little bit. Yes, she admires mother. I do admire mother, but I would like her to admire a second person who is younger. There is a politician called Cecily Mbarire. Cecily Mbarire came to Parliament with me at the same time,
Right.
and she was very young. She's an example of a youth, how a youth should progress in politics. Secondly, if I was a head of a political party,
You would.
I would put this young lady on the nomination list.
Nice.
Because with these lofty ideas, they will count for nothing until she has a foothold in Parliament.
Right.
I want to wind up by requesting the President to bear with me. He's been repeatedly telling Kenyans that there is a constitutional moment. Mr. President, I beg to differ. There is no constitutional moment in Kenya.
Oh, yeah.
Your Excellency, the issue of constitutional moment was spoken to for the first time over 200 years ago in the United States of America in Philadelphia. And what they meant, Your Excellency, by a constitutional moment, that a moment comes in the life of a nation when the institutions of that nation should undergo profound, underline the word profound, profound change. Now, what moment has happened in Kenya that is convincing the head of state to believe that the institutions of the Republic of Kenya should undergo profound change? In fact, we don't want our institutions to undergo profound change.
They say
what we
the
want
taxpayer is overburdened.
What we want our institutions to do is for them to enjoy their space under the current constitution. If you allowed the judiciary to enjoy its space, then the 49 or so judges who President Uhuru should have appointed would have appointed by now. Then access to justice by Kenyans would not be as frustrating as it is.
Even with questionable integrity, as the President's office would say?
Precisely. Then if you wanted institutions to work, then you would allow Senate to work so that money would not only go to counties, but money would follow functions. The functions of health, for example, in Mandera and Wajir, they require more money than the same functions in Kiambu, the same functions in Nairobi, because the structures of health are far ahead in these two areas. Do you know, as a doctor of medicine, I understand why money should go to Mandera? It's because, thanks to devolution, for the first time, cesareans were conducted thanks to devolution in those areas. Now, if they were being done for the first time 50 years after independence, it means for 50 years Somali women, Somali Kenyan women have been dying in the villages because of lack of access to cesarean action. It is important. Now look, when you deny Mandela a paltry 1.2 billion shillings, which they wanted to use for water, what do they use that money for? They use that money to build small water ponds for their livestock and so on. Somebody who comes, for example, Mount Kenya, who is feeling bitter that 1.2 billion shillings is going to Mandera to do water ponds, should be grateful forever to God that he was born in Mount Kenya, because as we fight them for the 1.2 billion, we are constructing Itare Farm, Karimenu Farm, a dam. That ran in the region of over 60 billion shillings. So if your area in the same budget has got access to 60 billion from the national government, what's wrong with 1.2 billion going to Mandera because of devolution? This is the global view that we want people who succeed to go to parliament to carry with them. Yes, you fight for what should come to your area, because all politics is local, but ensure that the whole country is developing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa. Gloria, I think you've heard that offer by Mheshimiwa. Well, but again, if I told he was a party leader, but all the same, he's somewhere that he's somewhere. You cannot bank on that. In 30 seconds, Gloria, what would be your parting shots? In 30 seconds, please.
My parting shot as we celebrate 10 years of this constitution is that we need to give things time. We need to see things to fruition. We need to stop being very quick at saying this is not working. We need to drop it. My parting shot, particularly to the youth, is be the voices of reason. Find space to plug in. If you have to fight for it, and look for a mentor who will be able to sensitize you around our governance systems. That would be my parting shot.
Well, Gloria Orwaba, Youth Policy Analyst, thank you so much for the great insights, and equally Honorable Dr. Boni Khalwale, who is the former Kakamega Senator. It was great having you this morning, and I'm looking forward to more sessions. That's where we get to wind up this particular session of Current Affairs as we cross over to Matters Lifestyle after this brief. And thank you so much also for your feedback.